Okay, today's topic is going to be ethical work practices. I like this topic, it's a good one. I like it because a lot of the stuff that we do is very factually based, particularly the legislation, which is kind of this is it, learn it, remember it, move on. Whereas ethical work practices has a little bit of opinion in it, has a little bit of, or it could be one way or the other. Which means normally when we do this, you get a bit of discussion. People will ask questions about things that they've seen before, and it's quite a fun topic to do. Unfortunately, I guess in this format, we're probably not going to be able to do that. The discussion nature of it is just not going to happen. And I guess the storytelling aspect of it is a little bit more difficult as well. Nevertheless, let's power forward. I will try my best to stick to the script because I know that it's not ideal to have to sit here and listen to me tell stories. But we'll do the best that we can. Let me just check. Okay, we are live. So, ethical work practices, what does it mean? Well, ethics, the definition of ethics, it's a dictionary definition. You won't find this anywhere in the standards or regulations or anything like that. It means pertaining to or dealing with morals or the principles of morality, pertaining to right and wrong in conduct, or being in accordance with the rules or standards for right conduct or practice, especially the standards of a profession. And that's specifically what we're going to talk about today. The standards of our profession as electrical workers, or standards for ethics in the workplace in general, right? I suppose a lot of this stuff is relevant regardless of whether we're talking about electrical work or any other work. So it's about doing the right thing. Doing the right thing, which is not always obvious. There are, it might sound silly, but I tell you what, nearly every day you'll come up against a kind of a moral or ethical grey area, or somewhere where you think something might be right or maybe it's not, or you'll have a difference of opinion with a co-worker as to is this the right thing to be doing or not. So whilst obviously we have to cover this, it's part of the curriculum. I'm not sitting here doing this because I think it's funny. What I'll say before we get too far into it is there's a bit of judgment here, right? You can listen to all of these things and you can assume that they're correct. And in my experience, we've collected a fairly objectively pretty good judgments here. So I'd certainly suggest that if you conduct yourself in accordance with the advice that's given here, you'll probably be fine. But that doesn't mean that everything that is said here will be right all the time, or if you disagree with it in places or in certain situations, that you're wrong. It is what it is. There's a bit of judgment here. But hopefully what we'll do is build up a little bit of maybe a checklist for us to identify whether something is right or wrong, ethical or not. So ethics in the workplace. Workplace ethics and behaviour are a crucial part of employment. Ethics and behaviour are just as important to most companies as performance. People who possess strong work ethic embody certain principles that guide their work behaviour. So, of course, workplace ethics are a crucial part of employment. Just going to work and being good at the physical skills of your job is not everything about being a good employee or an employer for that matter. Conducting ourselves in an ethical manner is certainly part of that too, particularly if you're dealing with customers, if you have responsibility for finances in your workplace, access to money, even responsibility for equipment, just the tools, vehicles, all of that sort of stuff. We need some sort of ethical guidelines to make sure that we're doing all of those things in the right way, conducting ourselves in a ethical manner. So acting ethically. Ask yourself some tough questions about your motives. Would your decision cause somebody an injury? How would you feel if you stood on the other side of the fence? How would your family feel? So what we're talking about here is when you make a decision in the workplace, and you're not sure if it's right or wrong, or if there's any doubt about it, these are some of the questions that you could ask yourself that might help guide you in the right direction. What's a good example here? In the electrical trade, obviously that first question, would your decision cause somebody an injury? There's been times, there's times where you'd be tempted. If I'm doing something on a socket or a light switch or something like that, when I screw that back to the wall, no one's going to see it. And presumably nobody's going to go and have a look afterwards. Or not for many years, potentially. By the time they do, I'm long gone. So I'm guided by my own internal ethics as to whether what I'm doing is good or not. Or rather, if the work that I'm doing is of the right quality, for example. Because you might think, oh, it'll work anyway and no one's going to look. Well, yeah, but is it right? Could this cause somebody an injury in the future? How would you feel if you're on the other side of the fence? If you were the customer and you knew what you were doing, is that going to stand up to scrutiny? How would your family feel if your mum or your dad was looking over your shoulder and knew the decisions that you were making? I mean, sometimes we're tempted to rush things because we've got other places to be or you just want to get home. Again, ask yourself these questions. The newspaper test. Would you feel comfortable having your decision published in the newspaper or on social media for the whole world to see? Or rather, if you would feel comfortable, then you're probably acting in an ethical manner. However, if the thought of this decision published on the front page of the New Zealand Herald or shared on social media makes you cringe, the chances are that you are not behaving in an ethical manner. A great example of this, and this is something that's generally directly relevant to most electrical workers, is how you treat company vehicles. Not just how you drive them, but when you drive them. Sometimes you will have a workplace that would allow you to use the vehicle for personal use. Sometimes it would be limited personal use. It might say, if you pop down to the shops, that's probably fine, but don't drive it on your family holiday to Queenstown, maybe. And in a lot of those cases, that judgment is then left up to you as to what is appropriate or not, until you get caught doing something silly, of course. So you're going to have to make decisions every day as to whether your behaviour, whether your usage of a company vehicle, company equipment, or whatever is right or not. Another example would be the stock that you carry in your van as well. So a lot of that stuff, sockets, light switches, whatever, won't be useful to many people, but from time to time it will. You might be replacing a socket in your house or at your mum's house or something like that. These things happen. Once you're an electrician, everybody wants you to do their electrical work. That's just the nature of the trade that we're in. And so you're again going to be asked to make these decisions. People will say, "Oh, can't you just hook me up with one of those just now?" Again, if that involves, if that belongs to your employer, apply the newspaper test. How would you feel if it got published on the front page of the Herald? Principles of kaupapa Māori. Whanaungatanga refers to the building and maintenance of relationships. It's the process of establishing meaningful, reciprocal and whānau or family-like relationships through cultural respect, connectedness and engagement. Manaakitanga describes sharing, hosting and being generous. Aroha means love, but it also means respect and therefore treating people with respect. Mahaki is about showing humility when sharing knowledge. Mahaki reminds us to share knowledge and experiences to understand each other better and to foster trust in a relationship. So these principles are very important to us here at MIT, the MIT, the organisation. But these are strong guiding principles from Māori culture that you'll be able to take into any situation or any workplace. And it's also important, even if these aren't important to you, it's important to understand that in New Zealand and the cultural backdrop of the country we live in includes Māori people who may come from a different culture to the rest of us. I'm speaking obviously here as a European New Zealander primarily. If you're a Māori and you're listening to this, then it probably sounds very strange and condescending Um, please don't take any offence. We also have mana. It relates to power, dignity, and respect. Do not trample on the mana or dignity of a person. Look for ways to work together. Titiro, whakarongo, kōrero means look, listen, and then speak. When communicating with customers, it's important to look and listen to develop an understanding about what the job is about. This will make any questions you may have relevant. Kia tūpato is being cautious. You need to be politically savvy, culturally safe, and reflective about behaviour. He kānohi kitia means being a familiar face. You should seek to be involved in your team. Again, fantastic principles just to live by, just general principles about being a good person out in the world. All of these things are relevant in the workplace as well. So here are some examples of good ethical behavior. And if you're watching this, reading the slideshow, and you think this is silly, everyone knows that. Not everyone knows this. Not everyone knows this. Trust me, I have seen the most outrageous behavior perpetrated by people that I work with. And that's shocking in and of itself. But generally, what I've found in the past is that even more shocking is the ways that people justify their terrible behavior. That, I'm just getting my own back. Oh, the employer doesn't give a shit about me anyway. Why shouldn't I just do this or that? Everyone can justify whatever they want. At the end of the day, look, everybody thinks they're the good guy, right? Everybody believes that they're the hero of their own story, and sure, you are. Why not? I don't necessarily, I can't necessarily prove that any of you people are actually human beings who are living, breathing, thinking like I am. As far as I know, I could be the only one, and the rest of you could be robots. So why not look after myself first? Sure, but you're not going to get far behaving in that manner, right? Hitler thought he was the good guy. Stalin thought he was the good guy. These are some of the most terrible people in history. We all think that we are the good guy. And so if we carry that attitude with us, it becomes very easy to justify even the most shocking of behavior. Hitler is a extreme outlier of that. Did things that were terrible and that he would acknowledge would be terrible if perpetrated against him, but in his mind he was the good guy, he was doing the right thing, and therefore he was able to justify those horrific acts. But crap behavior is crap behavior regardless of how you justify it to yourself. Be really aware of that. So good ethical behavior: arriving at work on time, turning up on time, not overcharging clients. Even if the client doesn't know that you're overcharging him, that's even more important. They might think they're getting a great deal. You might know that you're overcharging them. Don't do it. Not taking equipment or stock home with you, as I said before, using workplace stuff, stealing stuff from work essentially. Keeping a clean and tidy workplace. Good customer service. Good customer service is important because it's reputational for your employer. And by extension, generally things that are good for the employer are good for us, right? If the employer has a strong business, then I have a secure job. If I'm acting in a way that is valuable to the employer or increases the employer's standing in the community or industry, then I'm likely to get some credit for that. But also, having a strong employer means that my job is likely to be safe and secure. Taking only allocated breaks, quoting fairly and correctly, being honest, not putting down hours you have not worked on your timesheet. This is really incredibly common shitty behavior that people do. Advent of GPS and vehicles have really turned some of the stuff, particularly in trades, upside down because, like I said, with vehicle usage. Well, now as a manager, I can track all of those vehicles and I know where you've been and when you went there. It's a crappy thing for me to do or for me to have to do is watch people like that. But if you're suspicious, then it happens. And vehicle GPS is when a company I work for, let's say 2014, 2015, something like that, we put vehicles, GPSs in vehicles for the first time. The overtime bill went down overnight. Why? Why did that happen? Because People were stealing time. Half an hour here, hour there. They put down on their timesheet. They finished at 5, but they actually finished at 4:30. Suddenly they're aware that, oh wow, Dan can see everywhere I've been and knows when I got home, so I can't bullshit my timesheet anymore. It's incredibly common. Filling timesheets inaccurately, getting the job done in the allocated time, not taking shortcuts on the job. Not doing anything dangerous. Yeah, I mean, that's an obvious one, right? And your acceptance of risk is not necessarily the same as anybody else's. So just saying that you feel safe or you don't mind or you'll accept the consequences is not acceptable. Being professional, not showing off or being a know-it-all. That's a good one for me. Not using the work van excessively for personal use, or I'll go a step further and say maintaining whatever it says in your contract. If it says no personal use, then it's no personal use. Being a good team member, having good communication, not mocking others, being culturally sensitive, not harassing others, not distracting others, staying in your work area, especially in domestic dwellings. Yeah, domestic dwellings, right. Many of you are probably not old enough to remember this, but there used to be a TV show in New Zealand called Target, which they would plant hidden cameras into a house, and then they would get tradespeople around to do work for them. That TV show ran from about when I started my apprenticeship, probably for about 10 years, I guess. So it was a big thing when I was, especially when I was on the tools. Target, getting pinged by Target. And if you've never heard of that, and you're thinking, well, what did they find out? Yeah, all of the worst things that you could possibly imagine. We're talking about tradies, mostly plumbers, let's be honest, mostly plumbers, but also some electricians, going through ladies' undies drawers and stealing money and all sorts of weird, just strange and terrible behaviour. If you're working in somebody's house, you need to respect that you're in their house, right? So don't go wandering off around the place. Manners and courtesy. So, reliability. Reliability goes hand in hand with a good work ethic. If individuals with a good work ethic say they're going to attend a work function or arrive at a certain time, they do, as they value punctuality. Individuals with a strong work ethic often want to appear dependable, showing their employers that they are the workers to whom they can turn. Because of this, they put an effort into portraying and proving this dependability by being reliable and performing consistently. I think this is a particularly valuable one. I believe that, particularly when I came off the tools and was promoted into various supervisory and then management positions, I think reliability was probably my strongest skill at that point. I strove to be what I would refer to as a go-to guy. So if you need something done and it's particularly difficult, or at the last minute, or there was just something crap about that thing, or you didn't know who you could turn to, I took it as a point of personal pride to try and be that person, and I think it's paid off for me in a number of ways. Dedication. Those with good work ethic are dedicated to their jobs and will do anything they can to ensure they perform well. Often this dedication leads them to change jobs less frequently as they become committed to the positions in which they work and are not eager to abandon these posts. They also often put in extra hours beyond what is expected, making it easy for their employer to see that they are workers who go beyond the rest of the workforce and truly dedicate themselves to their positions. Okay, so look, there's nothing super controversial about that. It means what it means. I don't think I have to explain that. I'm sure you can all make that judgment yourself. I think it's important to be aware, though, that out in the real world, and particularly in the last few years, it's becoming increasingly recognised that work-life balance is important. That if people suffer from burnout, and then they will leave or become less useful employees. Putting your job ahead of your life or your family is not a good idea. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about dedication. It's great to be a dedicated worker. Let's make sure we have some balance in that as well. You will find, unfortunately, some of these slides are a little bit melodramatic. and perhaps beyond what they need to be. That's what I was referencing at the start when I said there's a little bit of opinion in here. So productivity, because they work at a consistently fast pace, individuals with a good work ethic are highly productive. They commonly get large amounts of work done more quickly than others who lack their work ethic, as they don't quit until they've completed the tasks with which they were presented. This high level of productivity is also due, at least in part, to the fact that these individuals want to appear to be strong workers. The more productive they are, the more beneficial to the company they appear to those managing them. Cooperation. Cooperative work can be highly beneficial in the business environment, something that individuals with a strong work ethic know well, because they recognize the usefulness of cooperative practices such as teamwork. They often put an extensive amount of effort into working well with others. These individuals commonly respect their bosses enough to work with any individuals to whom they are paired in a productive and polite manner, even if they do not enjoy working with the individuals in question. Yeah, look, this one, to me, this is a big deal. In fact, we could go even further than what it says here. I think, for me, what makes a workplace terrible is when you don't respect your co-workers. And for me, personally, generally, I don't respect people who will not work as a team. People who want to make my life difficult or argue with everything that I say or are just shitty people to be around make a work environment toxic. And they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere, and I despise them. I think all you need to do, whether you like your job or not, whether you're good at it or you care about your employer, having good relationships with the people you work with, it just makes all of us, makes our workplace just a little bit less suck for everybody. So just treat your workmates with courtesy and politeness, even if you don't really like them. Because if you make their life suck, they're going to make your life suck. Who wants to work in a place like that? I genuinely do not understand people who cannot work as a team. Teamwork is, to me, the single most important and beneficial thing that you could do in a workplace for your workmates and yourself. When you're working as a team towards a common purpose, that lifts everybody. And there's plenty of research into this. I can tell you this from my own personal experience and stuff that I've read as well, is that when people feel valued as a part of a team, regardless of whether it's their employer or just people that they work with, and if we have a common goal that we're working towards, people are way, way more likely to be productive. For us in our class, we have a common goal. Our common goal is that you pass this course. That's your goal, and it's my goal too. As such, I see our class not as a relationship where I tell you things and you learn and I'm different or distinct from the rest of you. We're a team in this together because our goal is the same thing. If you put in the effort, I put in the effort, we're all going to achieve that, and we're going to have a good time along the way. If I go out of my way to make it difficult or unpleasant for you, that will affect your results. That's going to affect our overall goal. If you go out of your way to make it difficult or unpleasant for me or other people in the class, that will affect our overall goal. Teamwork. It's always about teamwork. Theft. Outright theft is clearly not an ethical practice. But there are many small ways in which an employee can take something from an organisation. Office supplies are individually inexpensive, but in an organisation with 100 employees, if everyone takes home a $2 pen once a week, the organisation will lose more than $10,000 a year. Just quickly doing the maths in my head, yeah, I think that sounds right. 100 employees to $200 a week, yeah, about 10 grand a year. An ethical employee will leave office supplies at the office, avoid padding expense accounts, refrain from making personal long distance calls on company accounts, and use sick time only when truly ill. Another little thing to think about here is when those little acts of theft, and like I said there, an organisation with 100 employees, 10 grand a year, when the business that you work for is successful and they have money, then they're more likely to give you money, like pay rises and stuff like that. If they're bleeding a little bit of money all over the place and they can't nail it down and stop it from happening, then there's less money to go around. Just makes sense. Relationships, the way you treat fellow employees or customers is an ethical issue. If you promise a customer the moon when you know you can't deliver, your customer will lose faith in both you and the organization. Blaming others for your mistakes leads to loss of trust and even outright hostility from co-workers. This is an area where the well-known golden rule is a touchstone for ethical behavior. If you wouldn't want someone to do it to you, don't do it to them. Or be your brother's keeper. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is straight out of the Bible. We've been saying it for 2,000 years. There's nothing new about that, right? And look, this really ties into what I said about teamwork. Just look out for each other and look after each other. Be a good workmate, and other people will be a good workmate to you. Honesty. Much ethical behavior has to do with honesty. Stealing is obviously dishonest, but other kinds of dishonesty can be equally damaging. You might not want to tell your boss that he's made a mistake, although you will feel it will cost the company in the long run. After all, messengers often get shot down even when the message is accurate. As another example, you might tell a co-worker who is a potential rival that his idea is terrific when you know or suspect that it has serious flaws, in hopes that he will lose out when promotions come around. Yeah, that's pretty crappy behavior, right? Be careful about how you do this. If you need to tell somebody they're doing something wrong, just take care with that, because people are unlikely to appreciate it, at least in the heat of the moment. We've got to be nice about these things. That's the end of that. That's what I'm looking for. Not a long one. That's good. That's it. Over about half an hour. What we'll do is when we have the conference call for this topic, I think we'll delve into it a little bit more, because there's much more here that should be discussed. It's not just a laying out of facts. So we'll spend a bit of time discussing this when we have the conference call for this topic. In the meantime, stay safe, be good to each other. See you soon.